Welcome back to my Lazy Shell tutorial video series. Today's video is about the attacks editor. This editor is split into two parts: spells for both allies and enemies, and enemy attacks. We're going to go over all of it, from the simple to understand to the complex. Let's start with spells. You can choose which ally or enemy spell you want to edit from this drop-down menu. This drop-down menu lets you choose a symbol to display next to that spell in the menu, but only for ally spells. All ally spells use this star by default. To the right of that, you can edit the spell's name. Underneath that, you can edit the description of the spell as it appears in the menu. Monster spells can't have a description. There's no in-game menu to read those anyway. This 1 in brackets represents a line break. Without this, the game would try to put everything on the first line of text, which obviously there's not enough room for. This 0 in brackets represents the end of the description. You need to have this here, otherwise the game would continue to read whatever text comes after this description, and it would look like a garbled mess. You can toggle showing these line breaks and enders as numbers or as text by pressing this button. To add in line breaks and ends, you can either type them manually or click these buttons. Over to spell status, you can change how many flower points the spell costs to use, its base magic power, and its hit rate, which is its probability of hitting. A spell's chance to hit is also lowered by the enemy's evasion stat, which is found in the monsters editor. However, if you set a spell's hit rate to 100%, the spell always hits, no matter what, even if the monster has a 100% evasion rate. This is why jump never misses. These traits apply to enemy spells too. Each enemy has its own flower points it uses to cast spells. It's rare, but enemies can run out of FP in battle, which renders them unable to use spells. Attack properties. First thing is the attack type: damage or heal. As you might have guessed, this determines whether the spell takes away HP from the target or gives it HP. Effect type. Notice these two sections in the middle: effect and status. Effects are status effects like poison, sleep, etc. Statuses are the attack up and defense up bonuses you get from Geno Boost and some items. Effect type is paired with effects and statuses. If effect type is set to inflict, the spell will inflict these checked statuses on the enemy. It will also boost any of these statuses if they are checked. If effect type is set to nullify, the spell will heal the target of any of these checked effects. It will also get rid of any of these checked status boosts, but only if the target has any. In other words, this will not reduce the target's attack or defense unless that target was under the attack or defense up status. The only way to reduce a target's attack and defense below its normal levels is to inflict the fear effect. Inflict function. These are for specialized spells. You can see from the drop-down list that these do specific things. Scan/show HP is for psychopath, revive/heal is for comeback, etc. Basically, this makes the spell do whatever it says here. Of note is this jump power function. You may know that jump has a special property where every 2 times you use it, its power increases by 1. You can actually give this power boost to other spells. For example, if you gave super jump and ultra jump this jump power property as well, that would mean that every 2 times you use jump, jump, super jump, and ultra jump would all gain 1 attack. In other words, using jump is what increases the power of jump, but jump power can be assigned to different spells. If you wanted to make it so that using a different spell boosted jump power, you would need to change the spell in the animations editor. Inflict element. Here you can choose what element the spell will use. The monsters editor lets you change what elements monsters are strong or weak against. Although no enemy spells use the jump element, You could have them use it if you wanted. Other properties. These are some more unique properties that you can give to spells. Check caster, target, attack, defense. This will make the spell's damage dependent on the user's attack and the target's defense, rather than the usual magic attack or magic defense. Ignore target's defense. Just like it says, when calculating the amount the spell will do, it ignores the target's defense and magic defense. You see this used in healing spells. Check mortality protection. This checks if the target has an immunity to mortal blows. For allies, mortal blow immunity is given through equipment. For enemies, it's a property that can be changed in the monster's editor. Now for a bit more of an advanced topic. If the 9,999 damage box is checked along with check for mortality protection, the spell will instantly kill its target unless the target has mortality protection, where it will then do normal damage based on the spell's magic power and the target's magic defense. If check mortality protection is checked, and the 9,999 damage box is not checked, the spell will miss if the target has mortality protection. Usable in Overworld menu. Pretty self-explanatory, you can use the spell at a battle, like HP Rain or Group Hug. 9,999 damage / heal. We touched on this one a bit, but again, this one should be pretty easy to understand. This box checked, the spell does 9,999, enough to always kill the target or fully heal them if it's a healing spell. Hide battle numerals. This makes it so you won't see any damage or healing numbers pop up when you use it. You typically see this used on spells that do no damage, like Mute. The spell will still do whatever damage or healing it's supposed to, you just won't be able to see the numbers, unless the spell's magic power is set to 0. If the spell's magic power is set to 0, and you've got this Hide Battle Numerals option checked, the spell will do 0. Fun fact, you can actually see this utilized in the Smithy fight. His chest head does 4 different spells that inflict status ailments on your whole party. Each one of those spells has the Hide Battle Numerals option checked. Also, they all have 0 magic power, except the one that inflicts Scarecrow status. And that one is the only one that damages you. But the damage numbers don't pop up because the Hide Battle Numerals option is checked, so you won't know how much damage it does to you unless you compare your HP before and after the attack. Targeting. Who can the spell target? Other targets. If this is unchecked, the spell will be limited to a single target. Basically, the game doesn't let you move the cursor when selecting a target. For example, if you had this box unchecked and you tried to use HP Rain, Mallow would only be able to target himself. Enemy Party. Allows the spell to target the enemy party. Keep in mind that this is the enemy from the point of view of the spell user. If an ally uses the spell, the monsters are the enemy party. If a monster uses the spell, the player is the enemy party. Entire Party. This makes the spell target the entire party instead of just one target. All monsters or all allies. Wounded Only. Makes it so the spell can only target someone whose HP is 0. In the original game, this is used on Comeback and nothing else. One Party Only. Makes it so the spell can only target one party, enemies or allies. Every spell in the game has this box checked by default. Not Self. Makes it so the caster cannot target themselves with the spell. This only works with single target spells. If you're going to change a spell's targeting, be careful. Changing targeting can be a bit trickier than it might seem. I'd suggest looking at the original game to see how it's done, or you can end up with some unexpected consequences. In terms of functionality, some spells are designed to be used on certain parties. Simply changing the targeting of a spell doesn't mean it will function properly. You would also have to edit the spell's animation script. Timing properties. This section will be different depending on which version of Lazy Shell you're using. If you're using Lazy Shell version 3.19, it looks like this. It lets you edit certain timing properties, such as the frame window to time the attack, how many inputs the game will allow for spells like Fire Orb or Bowser Crush, etc. If you're using Yakabom's version of Lazy Shell, it looks like this. You can see the different timing properties available in the drop-down menu. You've got timings for control pad rotations, button mashing spells, etc. The key difference here is that Yakabom's version allows you to choose the type of timing the spell uses, while the other version locks you into the timing type and only allows you to edit basic things about it. The trade-off of having more freedom to do what you want means there's more to understand. Simply changing the timing properties of a spell isn't enough to make it function properly. In order to change things like the frame window to time the attack, or how many times you can mash the button, you need to edit the spell's animation script. Animation scripts are covered in separate videos. Damage modifiers. For spells that have multiple timings, like mash the button or rotate control pad, you can choose how much additional damage you want each input to do. For example, Super Flame. The first fireball Mario shoots at the enemy follows the normal damage formula. Each additional fireball he shoots from the player pressing the button repeatedly takes the normal damage formula, multiplies that by 0.0625, and then adds that amount to the total damage dealt. A possible error I discovered is that this line here, 0.5 times damage mod, I believe it's incorrect. After some testing, I think this modifier actually does times 0.125 damage, similar to this other modifier. A word of caution. If you have a spell that accepts multiple inputs, it needs to have a modifier. If you choose no modifier for those spells, the game doesn't really know what to do. The result is that you'll have spells doing over 9,999 damage and displaying weird damage numbers. Since enemies cannot time their inputs, there are no timing properties for enemy spells, and their damage modifiers are all set to no modifiers. Now on to enemy attacks. From the drop-down menu, you can select the enemy attack you want to edit. You'll see that a lot of these have blank names. Even though they're blank, they are used. The creators of the game never bothered to name them because the names of these attacks don't show up anywhere in battle. The only way to know what these blank attacks do is to select them here and open up the monsters editor to see what monsters use them. Numbers 0 through 15 are common enemy normal attacks. Which number is used depends on the enemy. There are some more specific ones in here, too. For example, 28 is the attack where the enemy throws a rock at you. Number 56 is the attack where an enemy throws a bone at you. You are free to edit the name of the attack if you want to, including the ones that have no name. If you give an attack with no name a name, that name still doesn't appear in battle, but it might make it easier to find and reference. Hit rate percentage. The probability out of 100 that the attack will hit the ally. Allies have no evasion stat, so whatever hit rate you have here is just its hit rate. Attack level. This adds a multiplier to the damage dealt by the enemy attack. The basic formula for enemy attack damage is their attack power minus your defense power. Then you take that number and multiply it by the multiplier the attack level gives it. Attack level 0 has a multiplier of 1. The attack does its base damage. Attack level 1 multiplies damage by 1.5. Attack level 2 multiplies damage by 2. Level 3 multiplies damage by 4. Level 4 multiplies it by 8. Level 5 multiplies it by 16. And level 6 multiplies it by 32, all the way up to level 7, which is times 64. The highest attack level the original game uses is level 3, and that's reserved for very special attacks, like Jinx's Bombs Away. Effect Inflict. You can probably guess what this does just by looking at these boxes. If the attack hits, it inflicts a status effect on the ally. You can choose which status effect you want to inflict, including invincibility. A word of caution, don't try to inflict multiple status effects at once. I've played around with that and it doesn't really work. The game doesn't know how to handle it. I tried having an attack that applied all of these, except invincibility. The result was that Mario's head in the circle next to his HP showed he had mute status, yet his sprite was behaving like it had sleep status, but then when his turn came around, he was still able to act as normal with all of his commands available, although he did do half damage as though he was under fear status. Status up. The attack can boost the target's attack and defenses, just like Geno Boost. This is what Valor Up and Vigor Up do. Remember that enemies can target themselves and each other with their attacks. Attack type can give a handful of unique properties to an attack. 9,999 damage makes the attack do that much, as long as it doesn't miss. You'll often see this used in conjunction with hide battle numerals. We had talked about this one when we talked about spells, but this makes it so the damage numbers don't appear. You'll also see it used with attacks that do no damage, like Lullaby and other status-inflicting attacks. No damage makes the attack do no damage. You can have either one or both of these boxes checked. There are technical reasons for why there are two boxes for no damage, but the idea is that the code for every attack has two separate checks to see if the attack will do no damage. I don't know why. You'll have to ask Nintendo. But before we close, there's an important feature of this editor I want to talk about, the damage calculator. This lets you figure how much damage an attack or spell will do without the need to load up the game and test it yourself. Choose who the attacker is, the defender is, whether or not the attack was timed, if either party is under attack up or defense up status, etc. I said this before, but the basic formula for attack damage is attacker's attack power minus defender's defense power. You can see that demonstrated here. Mario is the attacker, a Terrapin is the defender. Mario has an attack of 20 at level 1 with nothing equipped. The Terrapin has defense of 8. 20 minus 8 equals 12. You can see damage calculated for spells as well. However, it doesn't work for spells that have multiple possible timings. For example, if you mark the box for a perfectly timed attack, it says Super Jump will do 81 damage. A perfectly timed Super Jump of 100 jumps is going to do a lot more than that. It does work great for everything else, though. And that's it for the attacks editor. If you find these videos helpful, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. If you have any questions about Lazy Shell, anything in particular you want to go over, feel free to ask them in the comments or reach out to me. I'll try to address what I can, either in a reply or in a future video. For now, thanks for watching. See you next time.